Okay, we are going to be talking about how to build the stealth shelf, or my version of that. This is the basic parts after they are cut, and we're going to be starting with the bottom board that is on the list. I'm using the Craig tool for cutting out cabinet door hinges. If you do not have one of these, you can also use a Forstner bit. This is the part that we're calling the backboard. I'm just pre-drilling holes here to keep them from busting. Now what we're going to do is take all of our crown molding and we're going to put an angle on to start with. Remember, crown is cut upside down if you're holding it against the fence. The angles that we are cutting will be for the front and the sides. Now just take two of the angles that you've cut. One is on the front board and one is on the right hand side in this picture, and line them up with the bottom board. We're now marking our edge as to where to put our next angle. We will go ahead and put that 45 on the uncut side of the front board. And the sideboard that already has the 45, we will not need to 45 the opposite end, just flush cut it. That is the side that will be going against the wall. And we will do that for both pieces. Next, we're going to do the same thing with the trim that will be attached to the top. We're just going to put a 45 on all of the pieces and leave the front and the sides with a flat edge as well. And we're doing this so we can get more of a perfect fit. Okay, so we're going to line up two of our cut edges. That way we can find the size of the front board that we're going to be needing, and also the length of the sideboard. Okay, so once that is cut, we will also find the length of our other sideboard. We'll mark that, cut it, so everything fits perfectly. Now we have all of our pieces cut for the top and the bottom. Okay, we're going to assemble our top board. We're going to run a bead of glue down and find the angle that fits perfectly to the edges. Once everything is in place, we will brad nail this front board into place. Then once it's in place, we will do the same thing for the sides. Again, this is going to be the top of our shelf. The top corner is kind of out of this picture, but you'll just want to align it the best that you can. And then again, brad nail glue as well. Same thing for the opposite side. And do remember, if you have any wood glue that comes out on your project, wipe that up if you're planning to stain, as wood glue does not accept the stain. What I'm doing here is just cleaning up the edges with a sanding block. Now we're going to assemble the bottom. Just make sure that your pre-drilled hinge holes are at the bottom of this board on the inside. And we will put the front crown on first. Again, we are using wood glue and brad nails. And this is what I was speaking of about wiping up the excess wood glue. And then we will do the same for the sides. Make sure to put a little glue on the mating crown as well. We just match it up the best that we can. Put our brad nails in. And we will do the same for the opposite side. Try to get it into the picture a little better here. And the crown is probably the most difficult part of this project, getting it all to line up. And just wiping up some excess wood glue. Now I'm going to put a couple of tacks just in the edges of the crown itself, just to hold it in place until the wood glue can set. And again, we're going to clean up the edges with the sanding block. If you have any large gaps there, you can also use wood filler. Now we're going to check to make sure that our top fits the bottom the way that it should. You will have a little bit of gap going all the way around. Now we're going to connect what we're calling the back with the arms. These are the 2" by 6" arms connecting to the 2" by 18" back that I have pre-drilled the holes. I'm going to put a couple of brad nails in this just to hold it in place until I can get my 2" screws in place. And even though I have pre-drilled the back piece, I have not pre-drilled the 2" by 6" arms. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. This just prevents any splitting of the material. And on the materials list, I've put 2" wood screws. You can actually use 2" sheetrock screws as well. The other pre-drilled holes that you're seeing on this back piece are actually spaced 16 inches apart for mounting. Okay, now we're going to put our cabinet hinges into the pre-drilled holes. And to install those, I'm actually going to use the backboard to help me square these up. Because if not, they have a tendency to get out of line or sideways. So by pushing forward on these hinges, it squares them into place. Now I'm just applying the 3/4 inch screws into the hinges. And now we will attach our backboard to the bottom. Depending on what type of hinge that you use, I'm using 5/8 offset hinges here. Will depend on how much of a gap that you have between the backboard, which is mounted to the wall, and your bottom board or bottom piece that will actually be letting down. And I was just making sure that this was aligned on both sides. Okay, now we're going to put the top on and make sure that it is lining up again around the edges, as well as with the backboard that we have attached to the base. Then once you're happy with the fit, we're going to glue the top and connect the top to our backboard with the arms. If you noticed, I have just pieces of scrap underneath of the end just to help to level this up to offset the rise from the hinges. And once you're square in the back and have the same amount of overhang on each side, Start to brad nail the back first. And then, since I cannot see my arms on the inside, but I know where my screws are that are holding them in place, I like to use a speed square just to make sure. And again, we're using the speed square just to make sure that our brad nails do not come out the sides of the material on the inside that we're fastening to. So now we're going to remove our shims that we have in there, and we actually have a functioning shelf. If you'd like to adjust the hinges, you can raise the back or shift the back or the top from side to side. This is a piece of scrap just from the 2-inch cuts, the 3/4 by 2 inch that I have cut at a 30-degree angle, and it is going to be holding in our fastening device that the lock will actually latch to. Because the crown molding is actually set at an angle, you cannot fasten the device directly to that. You need to create a square edge. So again, I just took a piece of scrap material that I used for the 2-inch and cut it at 30 degrees to make our flat edge. This is the magnetic lock. It has an adhesive on the back that I like to use just to keep it in place until I can get my screws in place. Now, since this block is relatively small, we don't want to screw directly into it without, again, pre-drilling holes. If we were to do that, even though the screws are small, it would still create a bust out effect or splitting of the material. And for this, because it is a small piece, I am going to use a hand screwdriver versus the impact drill. And with this, we just want we want our cut block flush with the top of the crown. That way it does not get in the way of the lid closing. And again, with the locking mechanism that I'm putting in there, we want it flush with the top of the block that we first put on. Now for the actual magnetic locking device. You can see the magnet opening and closing it. What I want to do is just kind of hold it where I think that it will go. And I'm going to get to eye level, look in, and actually see where it matches up to our receiving end that we had just installed. I'm going to put a line there just to mark that spot. Again, this has adhesive as well. I'm going to put it back to my line, and we'll see if it locks. In this case, it did lock with the first line up. For some reason, if it does not, you can peel that back off and move it up or down. And once it's in place and has been tested, go ahead and use the 3/4 inch screws to lock this into place. And we'll test it again. Locks perfectly. Magnet unlocks. And now you have a floating shelf. Next, you can choose to put in gas struts or gas dampers, or some people like to put in just a chain that will ease it down. In mine, I prefer to use the gas dampers. Now your shelf is ready for paint or stain, whatever you choose, and then can be mounted from the inside through the pre-drilled holes into your wall.